Don't lose your way. Your mind, we have to be as one.
What's good, YouTube? Or Storm here coming at you guys. The deck I haven't really gone to in a while. I hadn't played it in a pretty good long while, which is Moonlights, which are the Beast Warrior fusion deck archetype used by Serena in the anime. We are still missing a few OCG support cards. This deck list does have those OCG support cards, so I want you guys to bear that in mind, and I'll kind of briefly go over those cards we get. So first we'll go over some text and some reasonings as to explaining why. So Butterfly is a card you don't see in this list. I'm going to explain why. Butterfly is not a bad card, but it's definitely the worst Moonlight by a mile. The main thing with this card is that it's not a Kaleido. Like, it can only be sent on your turn, which was the first thing when I realized it. And then you really only play it for its grave effect. So at that point, you're just pitching it for Twin Twisters or using it as fusion material and banishing to summon cat from your hand. Most of the time, you're better off having a Pendulum Scale or just summoning your blue cat, smacking it into something, and summoning another blue cat out of your deck. So I'm not saying Butterfly is bad, but she's definitely, with Chick and Fox being added to the deck eventually at some point in the future, those cards are definitely better than Cat for sure. Maxi, you don't see this in the main board. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You definitely could. But again, this isn't a deck, you know, especially with links coming out, that's going to be top tier or anything. You obviously, if you were to take this to a tournament for some reason, you definitely would want to main deck Maxi, but I don't have it mained in this list because it's kind of more casual play than rather than, you know, top tier meta or whatever. Fusion Recovery is a card I really do like in Moonlights a lot. It's pretty good. It helps, but I feel like Fusion Recycling Plant is much more consistent in this deck rather than like Fluffles, where in Fluffles I feel like Fusion Recovery is a little bit better because you have more access to poly than this deck does, because with Moonlights, if you do not see poly, you're not going to get your engine going, and that's really important to see. It's one of the reasons I ran Recycling Plant over Fusion Recovery. It is a very good card, but it tends to be a little win more in a lot of situations. It can extend your plays, but at the same time, it's not something. If you have Kaleido Chick and if you have Kaleido Chick and Wolf in the Pendulum Zone, typically you're going to have game anyways. So, Metal Foes Fusion, you can obviously play this deck with Metal Foes. I've tried it. It's really good. You can pop your Blue Cat and your Tiger to get their effects, and that's really nice, and also gives you a little bit of consistent 1/8 scale, so you can Pendulum Summon out your Wolf, and Wolf's a pretty decent card when it's actually on the field. I don't even know if there's a way to actually get it on the field in this particular list, unless I use White Rabbit. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there's very few ways in this list to actually summon Cat Wolf, and Wolf's piercing effect can be nice in a lot of situations. But I feel like with the new full line of support, this deck is best played pure, at least in my opinion. Pendulum Fusion is also kind of a neat tech card you could run if you're running some kind of Pendulum variant. You could, like, for example, say you're playing the Metal Foe version, you can fuse with your scales. The same thing, you can have your Moonlights in the scales and get them out of the scale, because Wolf does prevent you from putting any monsters, Pendulum summoning anything but Moonlights. So it's very important. So decent card. You could definitely try it. It's not bad. But I don't know if it's more for the hybrid variants. Obviously, yes, you could run this with Zoo cards. The full Zoo engine is, we all know how good the engine is. I just have the Broad Bull and the Dryden in here. That's it. I don't have the full complement of Zoo cards. I still think it's foolish not to play Broad Bull and Dryden, just because Broad Bull searching Kaleido Chick ends games basically. And but I don't play the full complement of Zoo cards. You can if you want, but I feel like we're all kind of sick of seeing them. So, and as far as traps, this is an OTK deck. I do play the Reincarnation Dance, which I'll get to later. I really like this card, but the reason it is an OTK deck, you don't want to play too many traps. If you do play traps, you want them to be traps that either advance your game state, something like this, or, you know, draw cards like Reckless Greed, etc. Like, you don't want to play a lot of trap cards in a, your trap card should be on your side, so it's very important. So, with all that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get to the deck profiles. So, First off, we have the 3 Black Sheeps. Pretty standard staple card. We all know how good Black Sheep is. Very powerful card, being able to search polymerization, searchable by Broad Bull. However, in this deck, it's the star of the show. You're gonna be using its effect a lot. Everyone sent to graveyard as a fusion material, it can recycle a fusion material back to your hand. Very valuable. Important thing to remember is the second effect is not once per turn. So if you happen to say fuse with a copy in hand and then use White Rabbit here to bring it back and use it again, it is not a hard once per turn on the on either effect actually. So it's really strong, very important card in this deck. And the 3 Blue Cats. Blue Cat is one of your basically kind of like your floater. Whenever she's special summoned, you can target one Moonlight you control except herself. It attacks become double attack until the end of the end of the turn. And if it's destroyed by a battle or card effect, it can special summon another Moonlight from your deck. It's a floater, pretty powerful card. A lot of times, one of the things I'll do with the card, for example, is I will summon one, go to battle phase with one of my big fusions out, like Leo, Panther Dancer, and then I'll smack it at Blue Cat, bring another one out, and then double my attack and be able to just run roughshod over their board. Really, really important card. You never run less than 3 Blue Cats in any Moonlight list. Next up, we have the 3 Crimson Fox. Crimson Fox is obviously the card we've all been waiting for. One of the cards, but Chick is a little bit better, which we'll get to in a minute. But Crimson Fox's effects: if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target one face up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes 0 at the end of the turn. And then second effect is when it's in the graveyard, when a card effect is activated that targets a Moonlight you control, you can banish it to protect it, but both players will gain 1,000 life points. Very kind of strange effect on the bottom, like gaining life points. I don't really know what they were thinking with that one, but the first effect, the important thing to read is that both effects are not a hard once per turn, but the main thing is so you can, for example, recycle this with Black Sheep, fuse with it again, introduce another monster to 0, and this deck, and obviously with the way this deck's fusions work, being able to attack all monsters, twice is pretty strong. It's a really powerful card, and not as good as Kaleido Chick, but it's definitely a card that I think we're all waiting for. And so yeah, pretty decent, really good. We'll run 3 Kaleido Chicks. Now this is the card that really makes a difference for the deck. So its first effect is very similar to an Elemental Prisma. You can send a Moonlight from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, and it's treated that monster's name is using fusion material this turn. Now the important thing to remember is this little semicolon that you're seeing right here. That means that it sends as a cost, which means you will not get Crimson Fox's effect. I did not know that. That's very, very important. That semicolon means a lot. In Yu-Gi-Oh, difference between a colon and a semicolon is a big deal, so that you do not. But the main thing is you're going to be sending you can send your Panther Dancer from your extra deck, and then easily make a Leo Dancer, which is really strong. And then if it's sent as a graveyard by a card effect, by usually as fusion, but by any means, you can target a poly in your graveyard, add it to your hand, and then it also has a third effect, and that affects the hard once per turn. It has a third effect. So whenever it is banished by any means, so by Allure Darkness or by your Wolf over here, it will prevent your opponent from activating any card's effects during the battle phase. So it basically means if you get into your battle phase and you activate this effect, you're not going to see Mirror Forces, you're not going to see anything. Floaters are not going to trigger. Amazing card. It helps this deck so much, and it helps a lot of you turboing into resources. Like, this card is really what the deck needed to get able to get into those big fusions more consistently. And I would definitely looking forward to seeing this card getting into the TCG whenever we do get it, which who knows at this point. So for one of the pendulums, we have the 3 Tigers. Tigers, pretty decent, really important card because its pendulum effect allows you to recycle monsters from the graveyard. Now their effects are negated and they can't attack. The main thing is you're going to bring your fusion max to use them as fusion material, which is pretty decent effect. It also allows you to curb Blue Cats, and if they're destroyed in the end phase, they'll float into another monster, so that's pretty strong as well. And if it's popped by a card effect, including while in the pendulum zone, it will summon another Moonlight. I believe it's from the grave, or it's in the graveyard. It'll special summon it. That's pretty powerful. If they do manage to float through all your Blue Cats, you can just bring this out and bring the Blue Cat right back. So it pretty much allows you, with a deck like this, the way it functions is you're supposed to float your way to your opponent's next turn rather than stopping them with trap cards. If you couldn't tell already by some of these card designs. So a The main reason I play 3 Tiger is because it's of the floating ability, and it's a card you want to see more than Wolf in your hand because it's not necessarily going to clump up your hand. Then we have the 2 White Rabbits. White Rabbit is basically kind of sort of like, it has 2 effects. It's very similar to Blizzard when it's normal summoned. Wolf Barks grabs a Moonlight from your graveyard. Pretty powerful, and then its second effect is sort of similar to another Blackwing card, Rakiri. You can target spell and trap cards up to other Moonlight monsters you control, return them to the hand. Being able to get having a built-in way to get spells and traps off the field early on before you get your big fusions out is very valuable. The main reason I run 2 rather than 3 is because it can get a little cloggy at 3. It's not a card you want to see all the time, and you can recycle it with your Black Sheep and continue looping it. So I feel like 2 is kind of the proper number for White Rabbit, in my opinion. Then we have the 2 Wolves for a round out. Wolf is basically, well, it's in Bellum Zone. It's a miracle fusion. You can summon 1 Moonlight monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard. And then it does prevent you from summoning other Pendulum monsters. It's kind of important if you're playing it with another deck, but when it's on the field effect, on-field effects actually comes up on occasion. Basically, if a Moonlight monster attacks defense position monster, you inflict piercing damage. So a lot of times, this deck sometimes has trouble getting over battle immune monsters, and this basically solves that problem. If your opponent's setting something like a Marshmallow or something in defense mode, you can just summon a Wolf and just proceed to smack them anyway. Allows you to play around some monsters like that, but the main reason I'm running 2 is because you can't Pendulum summon it back, and it can get a little clumpy in your hand. You don't always want to see it. And for the spells, we have the 3 Allure of Darkness. Most of the deck is dark. Combos really well with Kaleido Chick because you can actually trigger Kaleido Chick's effect with Allure. It's really powerful effects. You do have some light monsters, but you have a pretty decent count on dark monsters, so Allure is pretty much always going to be live. So yeah, pretty decent. Like 3 is a good number. I don't think I need less. 3 Tankies, pretty self-explanatory. You're playing a deck that's all Beast Warriors, and like pretty much everything not named Wolf is searchable. The 2 Fusion Recycling Plant, like I mentioned earlier, Fusion Recycling Plant is pretty dang good in this deck. It allows you to get that poly from your deck. It can get cards that can then be revived with your White Rabbit. Gets dead cards out of your hand and allows you to get to access that poly, which is very, very important. It's that card you want to see in your opening hand at all times, so it's pretty decent. It does have a pretty okay end phase effect. You can cycle back materials that are used to fusion summon to set up for your next turn. But the main thing is you're playing it for the poly effect because your opponent's probably not going to get another turn in most cases with this deck, depending on what deck and what their field looks like, obviously. 2 Instant Fusion, Norden is a pretty decent card, and Thousand Eyes Restrict sometimes comes up. Those cards can also, Thousand Eyes can also be used as a fusion material to make Starving Venom and Draco's Stapelia, which I'll get to later, but being able to make Tiger King to unfix your hand, or being able to make Broad Bull to search that last combo piece you need is pretty decent. So I run 2. You can obviously run more rank 4s than I do, but I kind of like it this way. We have the 3 Perfumes. I'm thinking about bumping it down to 2. It's a powerful card. It's a first effect's a Monster Reborn, then you can, and it also has in the same turn you can also banish it from the graveyard to search a Moonlight. It's as powerful as it is, it can be sometimes a little cloggy at 3, but I'm kind of test it at 3 and see how I like it. It seems fine with like this. 3 Polys, pretty much the card you need to see in your opening hand. You do have plenty of ways to search it. You do have a lot of ways to access it. You have basically essentially, 9, you essentially have 12 to 15 virtual copies of the card. So overall, you really do need to see it in your opening hand. It's not going to, you're not going to be able to do a lot if you don't see it. Then we have the Terraforming to search a recycling plant. The 2 Twin Twisters to clear back row sometimes can fix bad hands. 1 Upstart Goblin for consistency, and the only trap we play is Reincarnation Dance. If you're unfamiliar with what this card does, there's some builds I used to play where I played multiples, but I think 1 is kind of the proper number. Because when your monster you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect, adds up to 2 Moonlight monsters from your deck to your hand. You can have 1 per turn. Now, busting for getting a free +1 for almost no reason is pretty decent, and your opponent typically is going to have to make some of your fusion monsters, they're going to have to make some weird plays to get over them, because obviously Panther Dancer can't be popped by card effects. Cat Dancer can't be destroyed by battle. Leo Dancer is immune to obstruction and targeting. So barring kaijus, they're going to have to make some awkward plays. And the important thing to remember is any monster, so it's not just Moonlights. And you can self-trigger it as well. So it's a pretty decent effect. I like it a lot, especially the Metal Foe variant. Pretty satisfying resolving counter reincarnate solving counter and reincarnation dance into a monster and into a +3. It's pretty satisfying. But in this version, I like it as well. Then for the extra deck, we have the 1 Norden for our rank 4 place. We have the 2 Cat Dancers, the 2 Leo Dancers, 3 Panther Dancers. I've ran these ratios way before Kaleido Chick, and it's never steered me wrong. The 2 Cat Dancers, because it's pretty easily to recycle it with Black Sheep, so you really do only need 2 Leo Dancers. Sometimes the second one does come up. You can summon 2 in a turn pretty efficiently, especially if you're going first. Some of the second one is not the worst thing in the world because, kaijus exist, so it's hard to play a deck that's built around summoning a boss monster. But Leo Dancers are a pretty powerful card, being immune to destruction and targeting by card effects. And then the 3 Panther Dancers. But briefly, I'm going to go into their fusions and how they work. So if you're unfamiliar with these fusions, basically they both, Cat and Panther Dancer, both have effects that can attack all your opponent's monsters twice. But the first time they're not destroyed by battle. So this allows them. Now, Cat Dancer does have to tribute monster to trigger. And she does inflict 100 burn damage every time she attacks. But the main thing is you can use this effect to clear your opponent's board. It allows you to clear entire boards in the blink of an eye. Very similar to Bujin's Zonowo, but in the same time, you can inflict more damage because you can attack the monster twice. Pretty powerful. Panther Dancer can't be destroyed by card effects, and Leo Dancer can't be targeted, can't be destroyed. And when she declares an attack, she can destroys all monsters your opponent controls at the end of the damage step. Pretty decent. Then for the other fusions, we have the 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia. If you're unfamiliar with this card does, I believe it comes out Maximum Crisis, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm wrong. And it has a quick effect to slap a Predator counter on a monster. Now normally, that doesn't matter, but it also has a continuous effect that negates any monster with the Predator counter on it. Much like with Fluffles, there are times where you will have to go first, and this is not a Mega Dragostapelia is definitely not the worst thing in the world. Being able to get a monster to get for free can be pretty good, especially when you time it right. Negating something like Norden can. The thing is, a lot of the top tier decks right now, if you stop one particular play, it can really slow them down. If you stop invoked from searching with their Alistair, if you stop to Paleo variants from using their Frog Engine or Swamp Frogs, if you stop Zodiacs from resolving Norden, it can really slow them down. So it's a pretty powerful card, and I definitely like it in here. The 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, you can make it pretty effectively in this deck, and there are times that even though these monsters get real big via the effect of Blue Cat, there's times where this deck can struggle to get over beefy monsters, and that's where Starving Venom comes in. While it cannot target untargetable monsters, it doesn't affect the monster with its attack stealing effect. That's pretty strong. But you could obviously run something else. The 1000 Eyes, just for kind of another, you can run whatever you want, but sometimes, being able to remove a problematic monster can be nice. You can play anything you want, really, to be honest. Like, the extra deck in this deck is pretty tight. You can play it in the rank 4 if you wanted. Then for the rank 4 is the 1 Tiger King. Tiger King's pretty strong. When it succeeds summon, it can set a tanky from your deck, but then it's also a skill drain for all base-up monsters on the field that are Beast Warriors. That is pretty strong. Pretty powerful effect for this deck. I like it a lot. You could also maybe Tekka Tenzu with it if you really wanted to, but I think the card's pretty strong. Definitely should be a staple in any deck that runs Beast Warriors can make rank 4s. Emerald for recycling resources, mainly, but also for the next 2 cards in Norden mainly. The 1 Broad Bull, while I understand a lot of you guys probably watching this like, oh, Zoo, why do you... The main thing is we're running Broad Bull because it searches our most important combo pieces. And I think regardless of how you're feeling on Zoo, it's a very foolish just to not play a card that helps your Jack's consistency and helps you to win games. That's what Broad Bull does. And you only really need 1, and same with Dryden. You only really need 1 because 1 Broad Bull search gets you your Kaleido Chick, and oftentimes just getting your Kaleido Chick can get you your game. So it's one of the reasons why the Zoo is in here. So about comes to the end of the video. Deck profile. Let's make you guys think. What would you change about this deck list? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I thank you guys for watching. So Orstorm, signing out.